All right, good morning. Good morning, welcome in to PDMI West. It's just like any other Tuesday. The New York Jets have fired their head coach. A normal occurrence every fall. Welcome in, we appreciate you being here. I'm Thomas Hare, the Chief Content Officer of the Performance-Driven Marketing Institute, a not-for-profit trade association that serves companies and leaders in the direct-to-consumer and performance marketing worlds. On behalf of our CEO, John Yarrington, and the rest of the PDMI team, it's my pleasure to thank you for joining us at PDMI West in the Hard Rock Hotel San Diego. I'd like to thank the hotel for its hospitality and assistance in helping the PDMI bring you the events this week. I'd also like to thank our team for working so hard to make this event happen. With our biannual schedule, our team kind of knows what they're getting into with each show cycle, but they continue to push harder and create better events for all of this group. So we appreciate our team quite a bit. We also like to thank our more than 120 member companies and more than 40 sponsoring companies for this support, including Blue Water, the sponsor of this week's educational sessions. Blue Water has shared a few videos to share with the group at the start of every session, so I'm going to play one of those now.
At Tommy John, a lot goes into our underwear before you do.
But now I've found my bubbly side with SodaStream.
Philips Air Fryer is the original and the very best.
Thank you, Blue Water. We appreciate that. Before we get started, finally, we have to thank all of you in this room. Every single badged attendee makes this event possible. It's important to the success of the organization and the event itself for everyone to take part fully in the event rather than skirting the edges of it. So thank you, all of you, for joining us and getting your badges and taking part. We really appreciate it. I'm excited to welcome our media outlet roundtable to kick things off. Great panel here, headed by Carey Chase, Vice President of Media for Modus Direct. We appreciate you, Carey, taking part. Carey's part of our Brand Response Council. And thank you guys for all being here. Take it away.
All right. Great. Thank you so much. Thank you for everybody getting up early. Serious. So we wanted to really make this a very good conversation between all of these great media outlets because I think they have a lot to share. A big conversation that we're going to start with is really evaluating the landscape right now because we're at that crux of that moment where we continue to talk about moving from linear to digital, and then how does that impact performance, advertisers, agencies, and things, and entities like that. So we're going to start with how everybody here sees the industry as it is from viewership. Oops. There we go. Oops. Let's go in that way. No, in the wrong way. No. There we go. So I'm going to ask the folks from Roku to explain kind of what this chart is, what it represents, and how do you see it impacting the future.
Hi, everyone. Matt Brehm from Roku, Senior Account Executive. For anyone that wants to come talk with us afterwards, come find myself or one of the three ladies here in the front row, TL, Abigail, and Amanda. We'd love to chat. Going back to the slide there, I'm not sure what happened. There we go.
Oop.
Just like last year and the year before, this is the year of cord cutting, and probably 2021 as well, right? But actually in 2022, we saw the inflection point occur with audiences 18 to 49. All of a sudden, there's higher reach from streaming, reaching that core audience than linear for the first time ever, and it's continued to kind of go in the opposite direction since. This is not a surprise to anybody. We all, I'm sure, stream different apps, different ecosystems. But what we are seeing, though, is how it's affecting linear on an age number basis. So if we go to the next slide, please.
It's going to be
We are finding out that really it's truly sports that's really becoming the key driver for maintaining those traditional TV subscriptions. So as we start to see more and more cord cutting, we know that, hey, looking at adults 25 to 54, just from the 1 year gap from 22 to 23, we saw a 19% decrease in overall reach against that audience on linear. But if you take away live sports from that, it actually increases to 28%. So these are massive decreases in that audience. But what I think is interesting is how everyone up here has adapted, right? So you take NBC, right? You guys are putting playoff games on Peacock now exclusively. Disney also has ESPN Plus and a lot of great ways to engage with live sports there. And Roku is also looking at ways to engage with live sports by way of the MLB Sunday leadoff package. So I think it's interesting that while we are seeing these audiences move away from linear, we're finding new ways to capture them, and I think that's really important for all of us to do.
All right. We're going to move on. So this is NBCUniversal. So why don't you kind of explain what you're seeing?
Sure. Good morning, everybody. Sean Robertson, Vice President of Small Medium Business Growth at NBCUniversal. So good to see so many partners and friends in the audience this morning. From our perspective, right, we're looking at total audience, and that's really how NBCUniversal approaches the marketplace. We start with viewership. So what we're showing here is, if you look at the last 6 years, there's been between each year a 3 to 6% shift from traditional distribution models. We are a player in that space with Comcast being our parent company, but also looking to find ways to engage audiences in that streaming marketplace, right? Because there's a point at which, and Matt adequately pointed it out, where the tail became the dog. And when we talk about video and streaming, we're talking about all models of streaming between gaming, social, video, but what we're primarily focused on is that long tail, long form opportunity to engage and entertain audiences. And NBCUniversal is well positioned to continue to do that into the future.
Very cool. All right, then we're going to move on to Disney. Or I'm sorry.
We have more
Up
slides.
the share.
Yeah. So when we talk about the streaming model, right, what we like to focus on, like I said, is that streaming video, so that entertainment. Matt pointed out, last year we had a huge inflection point where we took a playoff game for NFL and placed that exclusively on our Peacock platform, right? The idea is to, and I'm going to say it first, gentlemen, to engage audiences and meet our audiences and our clients where they are.
Awesome. No, not my slide.
And the good news is that the momentum is staying with and heading towards ad-supported, right? For the people in this audience, in this room, we're really concerned about how do we reach those audiences and how do we do it with ad-supported models. When we launched Peacock, we chose to do it with an ad-supported model at the onset. And we think that really helped the ecosystem to adopt to ways that we were bringing our traditional content from our cable platforms over to this new way that audiences, those of us in this room, we're not excluded from that, right? We're also consumers. So how do we go home and consume that content? Mm-hmm. And so launching Peacock as an ad-first, ad-supported platform has really helped us to continue that growth.
Mm-hmm.
Great. So Sly Phifer at Disney. It is great to be back here at PDMI. It's been many years, like 7 or 8 years since I've been at PDMI. So great to see it still alive and kicking and doing well. Great to see all the partners in the room as well. You guys are awesome. I know I've met a ton of folks yesterday and the past couple of days, and you should come down to our suite on 429. We've got a great situation there, and our team is over here. So we've got a great crew from the Disney side to connect with everyone. So we don't have any fancy slides like you guys do. We just have one slide here to speak to what's going on. But I think they kind of told the story here, right? The story is the same. Consumption is really growing across the board, right? And it is really moving towards streaming. And it's a great opportunity for content providers, for advertisers to be in streaming because it is a digital-like experience, right? And for a long time with linear television, we wanted to do more. We wanted to engage. We wanted to really have interactive advertising, right, from a linear perspective, but we can't do that really there. But with streaming, it unlocks this opportunity to really engage and connect with the audience in a different way. So we're super excited about that. Disney has been at the forefront and really pioneering, how we create interactive ads. So viewer-first experiences. We launched binge ads. We launched pause ads on Hulu. We have shoppable ads. We have commerce ads. So we are really thinking about that. And we just hired a new CTO at Disney, and he's coming from Google. And we're super excited about having him on board because we think we're really going to take it to the next level in terms of that engagement and really driving responses and outcomes.
That's a good, having Google involved. We're seeing the shift between kind of spot-based buys to impression-based buys. So can you guys all touch on how you are helping your clients kind of move from that mindset to kind of a bit of a more of a digital approach, or at least a viewpoint? Even if you're looking, I work for an agency, we're still very much into spot buying, but we are making that adjustment, and it varies based on client, it varies based on the outlet that you're working with, but how are you making that transition? Who would like to jump in? John, why don't you?
Hi, good morning. John Rinaldo from Dish Media, General Manager of Specialized Demand, Performance, and a number of other units. So that's exactly where we're moving, right? And we've been doing so since for about a decade now, since we launched addressable advertising, which was taking our inventory, right, which was traditionally purchased on a spot basis. You run a spot, you're reaching all the viewers tuned into that spot at the time the spot airs, to dissecting that spot down to the viewership level and serving specific ads to specific households based on the audience that the advertiser is looking to reach. Addressable advertising has grown tremendously. The targeting capabilities has grown tremendously as well. But for the performance space specifically, addressable didn't catch on as well as it did on the general market side. The ability to reach anesthesiologists in 46 zip codes wasn't very appealing to the performance space. There was a lot of, I think, lost opportunity in hyper-targeting in the performance space. So what we've done is we've looked to dissect our spots down to the impression basis and bring all the digital tools that performance marketers are looking to leverage to be able to follow customers through their journey to purchase, be able to track them through all the touch points, drive to web, measure drive to web, and things like that. But bring it to the high quality content that we carry, right? So you're still serving ads in commercial podded inventory on cable quality networks, and a lot of us are all doing the same thing. But being able to bring those digital tools to a traditional TV experience is something we're leaned into, and providing enough targeting to maximize efficiency while not losing the reach and some of the opportunity to sell to folks that may not match exactly what a CMO thinks their ideal target is. So maximizing reach while maintaining efficiency is really our mantra right now in this space.
Sean, do you have anything to add? You were kind of nodding as far as being able to, because especially for you and Cy being kind of legacy, traditional media outlets, you've seen this move more than, and Dish as well being that, but it's also been always had a kind of an element of digital aspect to it, and then Roku. But it would be good to kind of understand what your perspective is and then slides.
Great, yeah. One of the ways that we approach it is really based on what is the outcome. When we have conversations with the folks in the room who are our partners, if you are a hammer, every problem is a nail, right? So in our world, we start with what are you looking to accomplish? What's the best way to engage that audience? How do we create opportunities to test and learn? And specifically for the folks who engage with the PDMI, how do we do it at scale in a way that it's not at a massive price point that makes it a barrier to entry? And I think that's where our company's truly evolved, right? 3 years ago, I was here as part of a group called Direct to Scale. It was a precursor to small, medium business growth, and uniquely why direct response is placed within that ecosystem or umbrella within NBCUniversal is that it gives us an opportunity to test and learn. It gives us an opportunity to start with the advertisers who are starting with their first-party data, who are really performance-driven, and able to come to us in flight, pre-campaign, and say, this is who we're looking to reach, this is what we're seeing from our metrics, how do we adjust to make sure that we reach max outcomes, and then we make sure that we're using those learnings to inform the next opportunity to engage.
Yeah, I would just say, there is tremendous power in the convergence of linear and streaming. And we see that from an advertiser side. We also see it from a content perspective. So just looking at it from a content standpoint, if we have a premiere on ABC or Freeform or FX, we'll have next day on Hulu, right? And so what we're finding is that there is incremental reach when we have that streaming on Hulu, right? And so we've got one audience that's on ABC with the premiere and a whole new audience that's coming through streaming. And so that incremental reach is powerful. And what we've done is we worked with some performance marketers recently with the Bachelorette. And so they came in for sponsorship and integration and the Bachelorette for the premiere. And they also had the streaming piece of it as well. And they saw that incremental lift and brand lift there. So just really thinking about how we converge those two together is really important as we graduate into this new space.
Matt, yeah.
Yeah, to add on, especially to what Sean was saying about kind of, trying to accomplish a certain outcome, I think that that's really important to keep top of mind as you test into the CTV space. And before you can even scale, you really have to start small, right? And I don't think that we have a lot of legacy marketers in here, legacy types of products, that jumping into streaming is not a one-size-fits-all approach as it was for linear. So I think going back to the original question about like spots versus impressions, yes, we want to work towards an outcome. We want to work towards an outcome that's measurable in the medium that we're serving it on, which is also an important thing we're going to touch on, I'm sure, later. But in terms of spots and impressions, I think one thing that we lose sight of is that on linear, you're watching 10 or less channels 95% of the time, right? Like you're really only watching a handful of channels, and so you're bouncing around in the same ecosystem really quickly. Sometimes, in a 3-minute commercial break, you'll go to 8 different channels, right? And you're seeing the same ad over and over because one advertiser is buying all those channels.
Yeah.
When you buy your first streaming campaign, right, you're only on one app or one channel. And so it's important to remember that like you might not get the same frequency in those first couple of weeks as you would in a linear campaign. Even with a 5K, 10K buy, these new fast channels and AVOD and SVOD channels, they have tons of reach, millions upon millions of households. And if you're not doing a lot of targeting, your buy is going to be spread out. You may only reach someone once per week. And so as you think about getting into streaming, it's important to keep frequency top of mind because impression-based buying is a little bit more spread out than spot-based buying. And you don't want to judge campaigns too quickly. You want to make sure you have a clear plan as to what frequency you need, how you're going to accomplish that, and how you're going to also measure everything.
Do you have a recommendation for performance? Because we've struggled with exactly that issue, kind of figuring out, you kind of put it on there and you just have a budget and you're really trying to go for the low CPM, but maybe there's a better approach. Is there, for a performance?
You're going to hate this answer, but it depends on the product, right?
Yeah,
I mean, like if you're selling a $5,000 mattress, you might need a few more exposures than selling a travel kit of toothpaste, right?
Yes.
So I would say that roughly I'd say 3 to 6 times per week seems like the right number, but again, it really depends on the product and how quick the purchase is. But it's definitely important to get more than 1 per week. And I think that that's something we have to kind of keep reminding advertisers, because if you don't see results next day, some DR marketers get antsy. They get antsy.
Yes, they do.
So it's just, you got to always have a plan, enter with a plan, and make sure you execute on it.
All right, let's move on to really how, as media outlets, are you contending with the existing concerns related to transparency, fraud, and also how pricing might relate to that, especially on the digital side. Fraud's a concern for probably everybody here, as far as, remember getting back to what Matt, you were saying, your results aren't there, is my stuff really clearing? You don't have exact times, and you can't sit there and see what you actually had out there. You'd have to trust the process. So you guys could speak a little bit to that.
We don't have any fraud, you guys.
I'll start it off. I think from a Disney perspective, we really take transparency and trust and accountability and privacy very seriously. It's been the core of our brand for decades. And so we have made significant investments in our tech stack to make sure that we can uphold that trust and that transparency and that choice and control. So whether it's you're transacting from a linear perspective or streaming or it's programmatic, we've got 30 plus DSPs that we work with in the marketplace that we have evaluated and vetted, or if it's through our campaign manager, our automated platform, where you get that choice and control, that immediate access to your campaigns, and you can sort of make any changes along the way and optimize. We really think about how we can provide that sort of accessibility. But from a data sort of activation standpoint, we've created a lot of partnerships like Snowflake in the marketplace from a clean room perspective to make sure that we're passing data in a privacy safe way. And so working closely with many partners in the room on that. We're not going to be the first or the fastest with it because it's Disney and it's, we're going to go through all of our lawyers and make sure we're doing it the right way. But once we give you that blue check, it's you guys are on the up and up. So privacy is really, really important to us, particularly in the digital streaming space.
Yeah, so it's It's one of my favorite topics. My team is sitting up here in the front. I talk about it a lot. There is, like in real CTV, there is no fraud. There's zero fraud in CTV, but there's fraud in CTV. It sounds crazy, but it's true, right? When you're working directly with a subscription-based platform or a publisher, there isn't any fraud. You've got authenticated users paying a monthly fee to access the content. There's no fraud there, right? Where fraud gets involved is through a number of access points that are utilized sometimes to access this inventory. But when you're working directly with us, there isn't any fraud. That said, that usually my assurances are typically not enough to satisfy scrutiny. So, being interoperable with third-party IVT and valid traffic verification companies is something that we've done, to make sure that we're able to work within agency kind of parameters and run the types of verification tools that they're looking to utilize. But yeah, working directly with your partners, being able to service all of our agency partners, setting up campaigns and deals specifically at the agency, advertiser, ideally campaign level, so that we can curate that inventory directly for the campaign, I think is the best way to avoid fraud, and also to best execute the campaign, in my opinion.
Yeah, there's an old proverb: if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Two important decisions that NBC made when we brought both our measurement evolution to marketplace, as well as our streaming, is that we did that with councils of our partners, right? Both from the agency side, the measurement side, established and newer players, and then the advertisers themselves, right? So it was important for us to not grade our own homework, and before we rushed to market, to make sure that we had the right standards in place. And that's something that's a continual evolution, and we're finding that we're having to include newer players. But to Sly's point, there's a huge vetting process that takes place. So we don't always move at the same speed that a lot of our partners would like, but we want to make sure that the folks that we're working with are confident that we have the right sort of measurement and proof in place to ensure that the ad dollars that are invested with us are done in a privacy compliant, measurable, and fraud-free way.
Interesting.
And I would just add a couple of things to that. So one, like we talk about working direct with the publisher, that doesn't mean necessarily it has to be an IO, right? Yep. Working direct can be through programmatic DSPs, just working directly with we work with the SSPs work directly with the advertisers, and just make sure that one-to-one connection there still means you're working direct with the publisher. Also, we have ads managers popping up. I know there's a couple ads managers represented on this panel right now. Roku just released ours. If you ever want to see a demo, talk to our team. But multiple ways to actually engage direct with this media, but while also ensuring that you are getting your ads shown to real people in real homes. And another thing I would add, kind of going off the partners aspect, is we recently entered into a partnership with iSpot to provide our log level data to them to make sure that they're measuring Roku's right. iSpot works with a lot of different companies, and sometimes companies can be misrepresented. So as publishers, we have to, and OEMs, we have to work with the data companies to make sure that they're getting all the data that's necessary, so everyone can be feeling confident and trustworthy about the data that we're actioning off of.
All right. Outside of going direct, is there anything else that you think that you'd like to share for agencies and brands that they should do to help, especially with fraud? Because that is a concern. Is there anything that we should do before engaging in a CTV campaign or a digital campaign to help minimize that? Outside, going direct is probably the best way to move forward confidently into the night. So, yep.
Yeah, I think from a fraud perspective, I think Disney Campaign Manager is our automated platform that we created. Yep. So I think that direct sort of automated way to engage with us is probably the best way to go. But also through any partner that we're working with, again, we vetted them. So we've got 30 plus DSP partners that are fraud free. So yeah.
Okay. Let's move on to attribution, everybody's favorite topic. As media outlet, how are you contending with the constant changes in measurement and attribution across not only clients, but also varied KPIs? This is always how I start my day, how I end my day from a buying perspective. But would love your thoughts on attribution and the fact that it's constantly changing and you're just trying to stay on top of it with your clients, with what you're able to bring to the table.
Right. Sure. This is the Very passionate subject of mine. So I would say know your medium, know your channel, right? We have to adapt to the audience you're reaching and also how we're reaching them. So I think 60s, 120s might be prevalent in linear, great for phone calls, great for form-filled type conversations. But in streaming, 60s, 120s are harder to find, they're more expensive. So you have to really adapt your creative down to 30s, right? But that also maybe might mean changing the way you look at measurement. It might mean looking at pixel-based solutions instead of just call centers to drive those leads, because you're probably talking to a younger audience who might not want to make a decision right now to call and make a purchase. And you have to find other ways to engage them and also capture that user and re-message them down the line. So we'll be sharing some ad formats, I think, later towards the end, but we have some unique ways to kind of engage the user via actionable ads, but also from a measurement standpoint, how can we use the data that we have as a platform to provide back to the agency saying, hey, they interacted with this ad, now here's the email that they sent, go after them with all your channels, right? Or how can we make sure that we're capturing the users that Googled the brand after they saw the ad and then they purchased, but there's no phone call, there's no QR code scan that occurred, so how can we track that? So thinking about your audience and the channel that you're serving that audience in is really important and very much tied to what measurement solution you should probably implement. And it's gonna be different for everybody. It's gonna be different based on the product you're selling or a service, how much that product costs, what the lead time is for that product, right? How do we adjust our measurement parameters to accommodate a $5,000 sofa sale versus a pack of toothpaste?
Sean, what are your thoughts on attribution?
Yeah, I think it's important when you work with partners who have a better understanding of the audience and the household. For us, it's about the proper media mix, right? You have the upper funnel focus, you have the mid funnel and lower funnel. We know that direct response works. I remember days in the past working with John when we first launched addressable television. There was a conversation with an advertiser who said, well, how do I know if it works? And we said, do a free trial of your product, all right? Let's see what happens.
Yep.
And in 3 days, we had to take the campaign down because they were completely sold out of the product, right? So we know direct response works. We know that a traditional model, particularly as we're rolling into the season of open enrollment, that's a product or a service that needs to be sold directly from a licensed professional to a consumer. So we're looking at the media mix between linear and digital. How do we make sure that we reach the right audience at the right time with measurement, but then also get credit for the media and the portion of the transaction that we can do. So folks have talked about our self-service tools. That's one way to do it if you're able to pixel a site and see the customer journey. The other way is to make sure that the advertisers and the agencies that we're working with have metrics in place and partners that they trust, that they've properly vetted to make sure that they understand between search, social, and streaming and traditional television, if they're in all of those different places, how do they properly attribute the amount of weight that they want to that's actually contributing to that decision process from a consumer standpoint.
Right. John, do you want to?
Yeah, I'll expand on that a little bit. So traditional TV and DR was pretty straightforward. You place a schedule, and if the phones ring, we paid this much for the schedule, the phones rang X number of times, let's keep buying it. I don't think only the media has become a little bit more, we could say complex, but evolved in terms of what's available. The toolbox has expanded, there are more tools available. Also, the consumers changed a bit too, right? The ability to take somebody through the entire consumer purchase funnel in 60 seconds, there may be some shifts on that side also, where folks are doing a little research, checking a review before going in and making the purchase. So what we're focused on doing is being sure, and back to the transparency piece, passing the signals that our partners need in order to track that and attribute that all the different parts of that journey towards that sale. And fractional attribution, multi-touch attribution, those types of models make a lot of sense today, in our opinion. Working with third-party pixel partners, or in-house solutions and being interoperable, passing the signals that our partners need in order to track all of that effectively is there. But also, it's a matter of from putting together effective campaigns, it's a matter of understanding what KPIs are. What are the goals of this campaign? what does it look like? If somebody wants to take action on this, what is the actual flow there? Do they need to go to the website to consider it, buy it direct, or can they buy it through third-party sites? Are those third parties walled gardens where there won't be any data passed back? So you might be missing some signals on the other side to attribute it back. And these are all things that just need to be taken into account to understand the full picture of what's happening.
Yeah, I would agree with everyone here. You guys have pretty much exhausted it, but I agree on the interoperability side of things. I think it's really our commitment to you guys is that we are interoperable across the marketplace. So, we're just painstakingly trying to evaluate every vendor in the marketplace to make sure that however you want to transact with us, however you want to measure, that we can work with you guys on that. Whether it's Pixel, whether it's state activation, whether it's through Snowflake, all the different tools that are out in the marketplace, we are really working hard to make sure that we can be there for you guys in the moments that matter.
All right. Now I would like to move on to fast channels, which is something that really I don't think we were talking about 3 years ago or 5 years ago, and now that's really kind of a big part of a conversation, big part of trying to, from an agency standpoint, we have struggled, honestly, to really engage and find it to work. So why don't you, if each one of you can kind of go through what your approach is on fast channels. Roku, I know we want to show the slide. Let's see. Yes. So Matt, why don't you kind of explain this, and then that can kind of jump off the fast channels.
Right. So FAST, for those that are not aware, it stands for free ad-supported streaming television. So some apps that you probably have heard of include Pluto, Tubi, the Roku channel, Samsung TV Plus, Peacock to some degree, I think.
No.
Well, when you started it, there was an ad-free tier when you started.
There was.
Or a free tier when you started. But at any rate, so there's literally a third of the U.S. is now consuming these apps, right? And that is a massive, massive number. And Sly, you hit on about Hulu, next day on Hulu, right? It's an incremental audience. Just like that, this is very much an incremental audience to what you're getting on linear, number one, but also incremental to what you're doing maybe in some more premium apps, right? And so me as a consumer, I'm a cord cutter. I have a couple passwords we share with my in-laws, but other than that, don't tell anyone. I do pay for my own Netflix and Max, so So these days, really, there's a lot of subscription churn going on, right? So you might have a household subscribing to maybe 3 paid apps, and then they want to supplement that with a free app that gets them all that kind of laid-back television experience, and that's where FAST comes in. And FAST is an opportunity also to reach users that might be streaming a lot of Netflix and Max, but maybe you can't afford those CPMs, right? Mm-hmm. And FAST can be a way to kind of navigate that audience that's hard to reach in those ad-free or ad-light expensive apps, and we can kind of be there to catch those users in a more efficient way with more efficient pricing. So one thing I'll add to that is working with like OEMs like a Roku. We also sit on a ton of data on both all the streaming apps, but also linear as well, right? We have 84 million households worth of streaming data. We have 25 million households worth of linear ACR exposure data. So we can actually identify households that aren't seeing your ad on linear, or maybe households that watch a lot of those apps that you're not buying into, and then we can target or suppress those audiences to help create incremental reach for those campaigns. And these are users that you cannot reach without using these strategies. And so incrementality is what comes to mind when I think about FAST and how agencies can leverage it, because there are ways to use data and targeting in order to make the people that you're reaching aware of a product that otherwise could have not seen an ad for.
How are you seeing the mix between, for FAST? Is it mostly direct response type clients? Is it mostly brand? What would you?
I think we work with 9 out of 10 of the Fortune 500 companies, so something around that. And so it's really everything. I'm working with a ton of DR, a lot of D2C companies. I mean, streaming's mainstream at this point, and the Roku channel, we're a top 10 app, most watched app according to Nielsen. So for us, I feel like we do see all verticals participating. Mm-hmm. I think we see a lot of D2C companies leaning in. I think that with the legacy DR, some of the older skewing products that are being marketed, that can be a challenge because I think we have to kind of take a hard look at ourselves, the creatives we're putting out there, and try to really have the creative adapt to the media. And in some ways, the other way around too, right? Like we as streaming platforms have to adapt to these new products that are coming onto our platform. So I think that we're going to talk about creative a little bit later, but I think that that's an interesting way to look at it.
Yeah. Sean, anything?
Yeah, sure. As a traditional broadcast cable syndication platform, we've introduced some fast channels as a way to make sure that we're not as precious about the content and being agnostic about how we engage the audience. We have over 300 different endpoints that we're able to reach consumers in the United States, not counting our global reach with the likes of Sky and our international platforms. So fast is a way, as mentioned by Matt, that we can make sure that we're putting content before the paywall. And it's a way that we can specifically engage a younger audience too, right?
Yeah.
Those folks like my 25-year-old son who believes he's never going to pay for a paid for subscription until I cut him off, right? I don't know if you can talk to parents, but ultimately it's about making sure that we have ways, beyond the paywall to engage audiences who still want to consume that premium content. So one of the examples I lean into is our NBC News Now platform, which is, not specifically right or left leaning, a lot more hard, relevant news, right? Up-to-date news, and it's refreshed on the hour. And that sits before the paywall, and it's a way that it's a part of our ecosystem. So when you're utilizing our Peacock AX audience extension platform, which is our owned and operated content outside of just the Peacock platform, you're able to now reach over 300 million people within the United States.
Kind of similar, but how do you see the breakout between kind of direct or performance marketers using FAST versus the larger brands within your world?
I don't think it's an either or, it's an and, right?
Yeah.
So it's really about, as you expand the impression pool, you can help with some of the efficiencies in pricing. Again, are we looking to reach a specific audience contextually? Are we trying to reach you on a specific platform? Is it based around live news, sports, or entertainment, live sports or news, or is it entertainment focused? Those are the things in the planning process that we discuss, and that informs what we're going to include as part of the overall inventory pool and media mix.
John, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so love fast. So we have a Sling Free Stream. It's our fast service. I really do love fast. I think it's a really good example of a value exchange that's been created in the marketplace where customers are getting access to very high quality content libraries at absolutely no cost in exchange for their attention to advertisers who are subsidizing all that awesome content. So it's a clear value exchange. I think that's kind of awesome for the industry overall. We see at Sling, our Free Stream users are mostly Sling paid subscribers that are using Free Stream to access it 400 additional channels. There's such a wide breadth of content that's available through the FAST services. It's high quality, right? I think another good thing to point out is that most of the FAST services, the ad experience is the same as traditional TV. It's commercial podded, which I think is a good attribute for FAST. So yeah, we're using it as an and as well.
Okay.
We're able to reach audiences when and where they're watching, whether they're watching, Bravo, or if they're watching, a FAST app news channel. We're able to reach that audience when and where they're watching.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I would, I'm going to take a quick step back on this one, just in terms of Disney. So Disney, a lot of different things come to mind when people think of Disney, and we are a house of brands, right? So within Disney streaming entertainment, we have Hulu, we have Disney Plus, we have ESPN. Within Hulu, we've got Freeform, FX, Hulu Originals, Searchlight Movies, Fox Movies, 20th Century. We have other content partners bringing into Hulu as well. We have Hulu Live TV. And then within Disney, we have Pixar, Marvel, Star Wars, National Geographic, Disney content. And we just added Hulu into Disney Plus as well. And that's been doing really well. And what's super exciting is that in January 2025, ESPN will be on Disney Plus, which is super exciting. So a ton of different, just a vast array of brands that exist within the Disney streaming entertainment umbrella. But from a FAST perspective, there's a couple things that we're doing. So Disney Plus, and I hope I can get this right because I just learned this recently, but we just launched a new feature on Disney Plus called Streams. And essentially Streams, it's 8 pre-programmed playlist. So just imagine like a live TV experience within a streaming environment. And it's all genre specific, so comedies and 90s movies and true crime. My wife and I watched Parenthood a few weeks ago on it. So you just tune in, it's got that live lean back experience. And then from a fast perspective, a true fast perspective, we have about 9 fast channels. So I won't remember all of these, but it's like ABC Live News, it's OTV News, which is our 8 stations across the country. We have Localish, which is our local sort of lifestyle channel. We've got, 2020, we've got, what else? Wicked Tuna. So there's a ton of different fast channels that we have, and we're actually adding 10 to 14 new fast channels in the next 6 months or so. So it is really growing. There's a ton of viewership there. As you mentioned, it's young viewership as well, but folks that are looking for that niche sort of audience, and I think it works really well for performance marketers.
And just to add one piece, it's not just young audiences, right? It really does cover the gamut. Like I know I came home and my in-laws were babysitting and they were watching the Johnny Carson channel on the Roku channel. I did not know they knew what the Roku channel was. and beyond that, they actually just loved watching reruns of Johnny Carson. So I think that there's a lot of that type of content that's kind of this historic content that really does attract that 50+ audience. So if you're thinking about ways to like get into streaming, I think fast, even for older audiences, can work.
And I'm going to agree with that as well because we have General Hospital as a fast channel. So I was like, wait a second, So yeah, definitely a wide swath of audiences.
And one of the things I'll add to that is that it helps to prepare our audience, our partners, for any potential economic outcome, right? We saw a huge shift during COVID into how people viewed content. Having this sort of free, ad-supported content before a paywall, eventually, we've been in a great economic environment, but at some point the music's going to stop, pencils down, and we'll be in a very different place. So not trying to scramble and figure out how we get folks as their consumer behaviors start to change and they have different needs at a household level, having that sort of distribution model in place really positions the 4 of us on this stage well to make sure that we can deliver audiences at scale.
Kind of listening to what you were all saying, there's just so many different options. Do you see a consolidation down the road? Kind of, Sean, what you were like, at some point things are going to not continue, that you can have 15 different or 100 different fast channels with each because I wonder if that's going to be about what you were saying, the impressions where for a performance, it's going to be on one you're going to get the person that's watching the Johnny Carson channel, and then it's going to be one impression that's off of a PBS type programming or a cooking channel, and that you're not going to get to have that opportunity, because I think it's important. Frequency is an important part of our equations. So how do you see, I think everybody's jumping in fast, it's going to kind of testing it. What do you see the future maybe in 3 to 5 years?
Right, and maybe consolidation for me isn't the right word, but because I feel like there are just certain apps that are going to stand the test of time, right? And other apps that are going to kind of go the way. And part of it is like there's 3 large apps right now: the Roku channel, Pluto, and Tubi, which I think have the largest market share in fast. But then you think about the other TV OEMs: Samsung, Vizio, Sony. So they all have their own versions of fast. And for those audiences, if you buy a Samsung TV, they have an environment that really encourages you to watch Samsung's fast app. We do the same with the Roku channel, and Vizio does the same for theirs. So I think that there is a lot of mutual exclusivity between those apps just because of the way that the OEMs package up together. And then Tubi and Pluto kind of become add-ons as well. And there's a lot of shared content between these apps, and that we're not, saying that there isn't, right? So I think that people have their preference when it comes to fast apps. But then for Roku, we have delved into original content to help create more stickiness. And so that's kind of been our strategy. I think to stand apart is entering into some lighter sports rights, working with some top talent like Kevin Hart and John Cena, and creating original content on the Roku channel. And so the way we think of it is make sure that we use our platform to encourage people to go into the Roku channel. We still work with our partners, Pluto and Tubi, in terms of promoting their apps as well. So we're We're not trying to necessarily compete. When everyone else is successful, Roku is successful enough on our platform. And so I think the combination of using our platform, using content that's accessible to all these different apps, but also sprinkling in some original content to make it sticky is kind of how we're approaching things.
Yeah, I don't think, sorry.
Go ahead.
I don't think it's consolidation so much as aggregation, right? Working with partners that are able to roll that up and make the heavy lift, taking that on our side of the house, right? So if you're executing a campaign with Peacock AX, it's one insertion order, it's one reporting strategy, and finding partners that are able to deliver that for you so that you're not having to take these 15 or 25 different endpoints and aggregate that together and make sure that you're handling separation, you're handling delivery, and all of the different reporting challenges that exist in the ecosystem. Working with partners at scale that are able to do that is what makes it easier, right? Removes friction from the process.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's happening, what's going to happen with the consolidation in the space, of course, but what I will say is in the beginning we talked about viewership shifts, with streaming linear. One of the things that's interesting is that viewership, increases and things don't necessarily correlate with ad share of voice. So a lot of the places that viewers are going aren't necessarily ad supported. So they may be, reached with content, but not necessarily reached with ads. But for the performance space, I think FAST offers a really good opportunity to find affordable inventory in this space on an impression basis. Right? There's no way you're going to buy network by network in FAST. I mean, just the platforms themselves are vast. But then if you dive into the network level, it's immense. So it's a good opportunity to test it. It's available. There's inventory available, and I think it's just a good ad-supported environment to expand out into for performance advertisers.
Yeah, from a consumer standpoint, for us, it is a one-app experience that we're moving towards, right? So we're still going to have the other apps outside of Disney Plus, but you're going to see everything pretty much consolidated in one space for the most part. And I think from an advertiser standpoint, it is really about finding the audience. Right? It's an audience-based buy. So wherever the audience is consuming content, however they want to consume content, because they're moving up and down and all around in different directions, we'll help you find them. And so it's a buy once and deliver wherever the audience is. That's what we're really focused on.
Okay. We have one more topic, and then we wanted to leave some time for questions. Wanted to talk kind of long-form advertising, and in this case, something beyond we have the 2830s, which is something near and dear to a lot of the people here in this room, and then even kind of talking, now 2 minutes are kind of considered long form within the digital conversation, or 5 minutes. So in the digital media landscape, what are the new tactics that you're exploring? And then because this was once a key part of a direct response strategy, and long form has seen inventory consistently shrink over the past decade. So is it dead? Is it evolving? How are you seeing kind of this long form content and the ability to sell beyond 30 seconds for a lot of the folks that are in this audience?
So I think on this particular topic, we're not going to see 2830s on streaming. I'm sorry. However, there is 90-second inventory of 60 seconds, so there is some time to tell your story. But what I think is interesting about at least our platform and some of the other OEMs out there is that you have other real estate to put out a message that's longer than 30 seconds. For example, like, I don't know if raise your hand if you have a Roku in this room. Good. Should be about 50%, I hope. But when you turn your Roku, you get greeted with this massive, large native banner ad right when you're trying to select your app. And that's a place that we can put brands in now. And that is an interactive ad that you can click with with the OK button on your remote, and it can open up to an experience that is a 30-minute ad, right? You can actually curate experiences from clicking from that banner, and that's targetable to audiences using all of our data, third-party data. So there's ways to curate that longer home shopping experience if you want, and still be able to kind of reach audiences with our data. On the streaming side of things, we're trying to make the ad a little bit more actionable, interactive, kind of like the Shop the Moment ad. We too have our own version of that. We call it OK to check out. And we work with partners like Walmart and Shopify. So if you're integrated with Shopify or you distribute at Walmart, you can actually serve an overlay on your 30-second ad, and then by pressing the OK, you can actually play the ad. Okay. And by pressing OK on the remote, it brings up a similar type of experience as you're doing, and you actually check out on the TV.
We may need to operate.
Is it terminal?
It's not you. It's your shirt.
Whoa!
Clear!
So we take the time to educate the user, the viewer, as to how to interact with the ad. We call that the hint in the top right. And then obviously you have the squeeze back kind of experience where we're telling them to press OK with a remote. You press OK and it pops up via an API, a checkout experience, which in as little as 3 clicks, you can actually purchase this t-shirt. And this is the earlier iteration of it, but we can now do different things like different colors, different sizes, but also have a whole different kind of microsite experience. We can buy different products. So we're looking at retail partnerships across the board, trying to strategically partner with the right retailers to kind of further develop this, and also leverage their data to kind of report back on sales as well.
Interesting.
Hot guys look hotter.
Yeah, we still have a long form business, so we sell channels on Dish. Some of the fast space is also, been used to deliver some, products in a longer form. Pause ads are something that we offer out to the space, which they loop, and you're able to take over that TV screen while the TV's paused, and then loop videos for quite a while. They actually run for an hour, so that's more than your 28-30.
That is more than twice.
But again, taking the 30 seconds and expanding it out. If you've got a product that's going to take 5 minutes to sell, how do we get the user from, the top funnel exposure on TV that, delivered all the reach, and then bring them to a place where they can engage with the product, learn about it, consider it, buy it. So QR codes are something we've seen clients lean into. So there are a number of ways to do it. The pause ads, interactive is another area that we participate, programmatic and direct. So that's some of the things that we've been doing in the space as well.
From a Disney standpoint, we don't have the fancy video today, but we do the same thing. We've got, unfortunately, but we also have shoppable ads and pause ads and commerce ads, and we've got carousels and all of that great stuff. So we can do all of the purchasing within the program as well, and identifying products within the program. I think so that's great. That's the power of streaming, right? That's what the digital-like experience gives you. But I think from a true long form perspective, I'll be sort of the contrarian, I guess, but I think it's going to actually have a revival. I'm not going to work on it personally. I've never worked on it, but I think there's something there. And I think if someone can figure out how to do it in streaming in the right way, it could actually have a comeback, because it's pretty compelling. I found myself watching, long form, and I'm like, why am I watching 10 minutes of this guy talking about whatever?
Yeah.
Right? So it does actually work. We just would have to figure out how to get it into streaming in the right way. I think from a Disney perspective, it might be hard because it would cost a lot of money, and the production would have to be, impeccable. But if we figure that out, there's an opportunity.
You look at unboxing videos, like things that are popular on the internet.
Exactly. On social media.
The unboxing channel.
Right. Exactly.
There you go.
I'm not going to bring that to Disney.
Yeah,
but
me neither. Yeah.
It sounds like there's space on Hulu.
There's not space on, right, one of the fast channels.
We only have a little less than 5 minutes, but anything before we throw it to questions that you want to leave the audience?
We've done a lot of talking.
Words of wisdom? Yeah. Right. All right, well, why don't we cut to any questions? We have the answers.
Thanks. Sean, this is for you. You had mentioned about the SMB as a growth marketplace for streaming. I'd seen this one interesting Facebook ad where an agency was promoting you can get into CTV ads for as low as $50 and other anecdotes. But generally speaking, as a trend, do you think that CTV and streaming helps to democratize advertising for those SMBs that couldn't quite have the budget to get into a traditional linear space?
That's a great question, Chris. Good to see you, buddy. The way that we look at it, and I think you heard folks here mention that we have ad manager platform. So we launched Peacock Ad Manager last year as a way to onboard those sort of advertisers, right? If you think about NBCUniversal, we have spent over 80 years really scaling with brands 1 through 2,500. We do pretty well with them. They know who we are. We work with their agencies. We work with all of you in this room. It's at brands 2501 where we'd said, we don't have a fully developed, fully scaled national sales team of 20,000 strong to get out and talk to those mom and pop shops about how they can onboard and engage with NBCUniversal. And for far too long, we'd position ourselves as this premium, top of the mountain publisher
that unless you had a budget that was a strong six figures, talk to us when you've grown. We have moved away from that. We've made sure that we can right-size our platform to engage brands of all sizes. And that's probably the ad that you're seeing on Facebook, Instagram. We've used our social partners to really get out the word that we are open for business, and we've really taken a hard look at ourselves to say, how do we make sure that before these brands scale and become a household name, they know who we are, and we're part of that journey to make sure that we can use our scale to help them build and get awareness in the spaces that they need to be in.
I'll jump on that one as well, Chris. So we, about 3 years ago, launched our self-service platform, Hulu Ad Manager, which is now Disney Campaign Manager. And we built it for SMBs specifically. So it was really about democratizing access to inventory and premium content. And we've had over, 4,500 advertisers come through the platform that are true SMBs, startups, and scale-ups. And we lowered the barrier to entry. So to launch a campaign on the platform is only $500. So we made it really accessible to the marketplace, and it's been huge, and it's still doing really well. We opened it up to small agencies as well. So we have about 1,000 small agencies, independent agencies, leveraging the platform today. So pretty huge.
Any other questions?
Got time for one more. Anyone else? You guys are good?
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.